What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to talk about a time where, if you look at it compared to now, you would think this time is completely almost unbelievable. But there was a time where the internet was completely uncensored. That's right. Social media platforms, YouTube in particular, were filled with crazy conspiracy theorists, or at the same time, were filled with really basic and innocent how-to videos. They were all of it, right? A to Z. It was all on YouTube. And this was a time where I'm in my mid-30s. This was about, I'd say about 15-ish years ago. And YouTube was relatively new, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know exactly how long YouTube's been around, but I do know that at this time, there were, and this is really what, when people say, you know, be woke or whatever, like that was, in my, at least to me, what being woke meant was like being woke to all these like Illuminati videos and Bilderberger meetings, and Alex Jones was on YouTube, I believe, at that point in time. So this was a time where everything was completely uncensored. And I think that people in my age group, if you're over 30, I would imagine, 30 or up, would probably remember this time. Most of us, at least, right? And if you think about it, what was there any more like violence or did anything bad come from that? To me, I can't think of it at all. It was a much more united country in terms of the USA, I would say. But in any case, like there was a time, right, where literally you could go on YouTube and just type in, I mean, I remember watching these crazy videos about Dave Chappelle. I remember learning about Monsanto and learning that the cancer industry was a many billion, like I think it's like $100 billion a year industry or something crazy like that. This is where, in terms of my inner conspiracy theorist, it all comes from that time. And do I think that's bad? No, I don't think that's bad at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good thing. Why? Well, here's what I did in terms of how I absorbed this information, and then what the kind of consequences or repercussions of that were. For me, I was early 20s, 21, 22 years old, somewhere around there. And I was like watching these videos, right? Me and my friends discovered them all together, like, dude, check this out. And we would just all be sitting around a laptop watching these crazy YouTube videos, right? And then of course, YouTube was the same then in terms of like the rabbit hole. You know what I mean? You watch one of those videos, then you watch another and another and another. And it was like everything you heard was crazy, but it all made a ton of sense. I mean, there was stuff about like Hurricane Katrina not necessarily being the same story that you might have thought. Obviously, there was 9/11 stuff on there. There were many videos. Dave Chappelle was one of the ones that really got me, because Dave Chappelle at that time had just walked away. I think it was just a few years earlier, maybe in terms of exactly when, I don't remember. But Dave Chappelle, not long before this time period I'm talking about, had walked away from like a $50-something million deal. There were signs of like the Eminem, the rapper, where his good friend that got shot and killed was, there was a video on there saying that like 2 years prior to that, they had, I think, shot a music video in that exact same bar or wherever it was, the nightclub in Detroit, and the same thing happened in the video that ended up happening in real life at the exact same bar and stuff. So it was like there was stuff on there that was wild, you know. And so for me, Monsanto and that kind of stuff made me really go crazy, and I was starting to think I have to stop eating. I like, at that point in time in my life, even though, I'm sorry about this plane going over my head right now, but I'm gonna keep rolling with it. Even though I didn't last long in this way, I started to want to eat really healthy, because like it really made me, and now I'm back to eating healthy again, ironically, but it probably lasted just a few months, and then I kind of went back to standard American diet, sadly enough. But in any case, I was like really aware of what I eat, and the GMOs, genetically modified organisms. They taught me about the Monsanto company, Monsanto having former FDA people, unreal, in charge. Like there were executives in Monsanto that were very high up in the FDA. I don't know which one came first, but the point is, there was all this crazy information out there. Nothing, to my knowledge at least, nothing was being censored at that time. It was just all like, let it be. And then it kind of, because unlike TV and radio, there was no FCC, I don't think, for the internet, right? So it was totally different than anything that we had been consuming in terms of compared to cable television content or radio. And so, yeah, it was wild, right? And for me, like I said, with the kind of the repercussions for me were this. I immediately went into kind of doom mode, like, oh my God, everything's rigged, everything I've ever been taught was a lie. And I sort of, like, every celebrity is a sellout. It's kind of like where I was headed for a while. And then as time goes on, you live more and you learn more and you grow up more, I started to realize that, it's probably not every single celebrity. Granted, there's a decent amount of them. It just kind of like you started to just use common sense to sort of piece together who was unbelievable, who was real, who maybe sold their soul in some capacity to get where they are or were. And it just sort of, that's kind of the trickle down effect for me personally and all my friends. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine, one of my best friends, the other day about that time period in our lives, and he now is not even conspiratorial at all. Like, he's aware of certain realities, but he's like pretty much not a conspiratorial person at all, even though me and him started watching these videos together and we were both just as like gloom and doom about it. So the point I'm making is this is before internet censorship was like this huge thing, right? Alex Jones was on every platform that was out there, to my knowledge. And there was crazy stuff being said, some of it true, some of it not true. But the sort of baseline of it was this. It didn't impact the world in any sort of negative way. We are far more divided today than we were back then, when everybody that was in my age group, 20s, I would say, like teenagers to probably 30s and maybe even a little older, were all watching these videos. It was where the conspiracies have all kind of come from, in my opinion, because it was a way to get conspiracy content out to the masses, because you weren't going to see that kind of stuff on cable TV. You weren't going to see that kind of stuff on the radio. So when you started to see it all, it started to open people's minds. And then some people said, it's bullshit. And some people said, I believe it all 100%. And some people, like me, said, and I think a vast majority of people probably did this, they said, well, some of that makes sense. I believe this, and this. I'm not sure about that. I believe this or whatever. So it was like, that was kind of what happened. And I think that the moral of that story to me, and in my opinion, is that despite whatever information you put out there, you're going to have some people that believe it, some people that don't. And best of all, you're going to have dialogue about these specific things in more detail, whether that be debates or whether that be, just different content people can kind of compare and contrast. You're going to have that stuff, and that's going to, whatever the truth is, will ultimately win out. And if it doesn't, there are some people that just don't want to believe what's true. They want to believe the craziest shit they could possibly imagine. So, for me, I think that based on, if you've watched any of my previous videos or my videos after this, you're going to see that I'm a little bit conspiratorial. That's where it comes from. However, I believe that I am conspiratorial in a way where it makes sense. Also, another big thing in that time period was vaccines in general. It's why I've always been sort of a vaccine skeptic, because you start to learn, like, whoa, there's aluminum in vaccines, there's copper, there's all this, weird stuff. I can't catch a break. But, yeah, so anyways, I don't know. I think that the moral of the story is this, guys. If you have unlimited information out there with no censorship, it's not going to turn everybody into a crackpot, right? It's not going to turn everybody into a full-blown conspiracy theorist. However, and I think this is a good thing, it will make some people think about it. You know what I mean? Like, genuinely have to consider something that they would have never otherwise considered, and then use common sense to form their opinions from there. And so that's the kind of era I grew up in, right when the internet was really starting to pop off, and right when YouTube came about, and right when, I'm sure there was stuff like that on Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook at all, but But yeah, so I think that is, to me, a good thing, a net positive. Again, we were not very divided, even though there was some crazy stuff going on. As a matter of fact, we had far more, and I think this is why people my age group tend to be not so pro-establishment in general, is because some of us have seen at least some of these videos I'm talking about. Maybe they didn't go as crazy down the rabbit hole as someone like me and my friends, but you've seen this stuff, and it sort of made you aware of it, and then you sort of continue to put together your opinions and sort of your belief system as you continue to grow up and turn into a full-blown adult. So I don't know, let me know if you guys were in that same time period, if you watch these videos I'm talking about, Dave Chappelle going to Africa, the Monsanto, the vaccine, all this crazy stuff, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.